Hello, my name is Dr. P. Dominique Paterano. I'm the president and founder of Crimson Coaching, which provides academic tutoring, test prep, and college consulting for students worldwide. This talk is titled College Planning for 9th and 10th Graders and the Parents Who Love Them. I was a high school teacher for over a decade before I started Crimson Coaching in 2014, and I did so in order to be able to work more directly with students and families. A lot of people ask me why Crimson Coaching, and as you can see from the mats of the photograph and the diploma behind me, they are the color crimson, which is the color of my alma mater, Harvard, and therefore, because what I do is often coach students in order to achieve their goals, I name my company Crimson Coaching. I developed this talk because many parents of 9th and 10th graders are often at a loss about what they can do to help their children to succeed when they apply to college in 12th grade. And there's so many things beyond, sort of 11th grade. And that's usually, unfortunately, when guidance counselors really begin concentrating on the college process. But I do think that there's a number of things that freshmen and sophomores can do in order to increase their chances of getting accepted to the colleges of their dreams later on, and that's what we'll be talking about tonight. So tonight's agenda, I will be speaking. This is a pre-recorded talk, so there will be no questions during the talk, but you can definitely feel free to email me if any questions that you have, and I'll be putting my email at the end of the talk. And before we go any further, I do just want to thank you all for watching this at home, to Laura Panter, the young adult librarian at Sachem Public Library, for inviting me to give this talk, and to Sachem Public Library for hosting it. Just a note about my sources. I am an historian. My PhD is in history, and I love to share my sources. So some of it is personal. As a alumna of Harvard, I went to my 25th college reunion back in 2018, and the dean of admissions, William Fitzsimmons, did share a bunch of little tips with my class on what they could do for their children, and so I'll be passing those along with you to you tonight. Also professional, I mentioned I was a high school teacher. This is Great Neck North High School, where I began my career way back in the 90s. And then in the 2000s, I also taught at the public high school of Scarsdale in Westchester. And for 5 years in between, I taught at the prestigious independent day school in New York City, Horace Mann. And of course, much of my professional sort of background or sources that inform this talk come from doing just that, from advising the parents of 9th and 10th graders over the past 8 years in my work as president of Crimson Coaching. But of course, I also do keep abreast of the latest research and who gets into college and who gets in and why. A Year Inside College Admissions came out in 2020, and that was a New York Times bestseller by the New York Times journalist Jeffrey Selingo, as well as his colleague Ron Lieber at the New York Times, who's a personal finance columnist there. The Price You Pay for College also informs some of what I will be sharing with you this evening. So the act of the college planning process, I really consider a balancing act, because on the one hand, you want to build the strongest application that you can by doing everything that you can in order to make yourself a strong applicant. And on the other hand, it's really about finding about a dozen colleges that are right for you. And we'll talk both about what you can do during 9th and 10th grade in both of those parts of the balancing act. But before we go any further, let's talk about the components of a college application. Many of these to parents will seem very familiar. There is, of course, grades and GPA, coursework, and of course, the more rigorous your coursework, the sort of better off you'll be. Colleges view that much more favorably than easy coursework. Those are the most two important factors, your coursework and your GPA. Below that, standardized test scores like the SAT and ACT, extracurricular activities, teacher and counselor recommendations, your college application essay. And interestingly enough, since maybe some parents applied to college, also showing interest in a college is very important these days. However, you don't want to show too much interest in a college if you need financial aid from that college. It's a little bit like playing hard to get for a college. And the reason why is that you want to show interest is because if you show great interest in a college, you are more likely to accept their offer of admissions. And colleges need to sort of game the system of ranking that has been developed in part by US News and World Report, whereby colleges yield, or the percentage of students who are accepted eventually go. A college like my own alma mater, Harvard, has a very high yield. I think about 88% of students to whom Harvard offers admissions will decide to go. So that will rank Harvard up in the US News and World Report rankings. However, if a college will know if you are more likely to say yes if you show interest in that college. However, of course, if you need financial merit aid from a college, and you need to find out beforehand whether that college even offers merit aid, which is aid not tied to your financial need. Colleges like Harvard and much of the Ivy League and other colleges of that ilk don't really give out merit scholarships, but many colleges do. And so there's some suggestion that if you give too much inkling that you might like to go there, the college might be less inclined to give you that financial aid. So it's really, unfortunately, a lot of sort of like a guessing game, a lot in terms of showing interest, but that is the latest thinking. So it's my recommendation that ninth grade students should really concentrate on establishing habits of successful students. So what exactly does that mean? Well, my big three are study skills, note-taking, and time management, okay? If you can master those, you will be in a much better position to get good grades throughout high school and even beyond into college. Also, start building relationships. Choose your friends wisely, because there are many studies that show that peer pressure is a real thing, both good peer pressure and bad peer pressure. So if you have friends who are, doing well in school, doing lots of extracurricular activities, there's a greater likelihood that you will too, okay? And you want to find mentors. A mentor could even be an older student, somebody who's a couple of years older who could counsel you on what courses to take. It could be a coach. It could be a teacher, someone who can kind of show you the ropes that is perhaps not necessarily your parent. Your parent could be your mentor, but it doesn't have to be, okay? Also, you want to get into the habit of asking for help, whether that's from teachers in your coursework, your counselor if you're having an emotional problem, your peers for whatever kind of issue you're having, or from tutors. These are all also habits that you can bring with you into college and that will help you succeed there as well. And if you've done well throughout your entire freshman year, consider signing up for a challenging course in 10th grade or two. You might want to have an AP course in your favorite subject. Again, think about adding rigor as you progress in each year of high school. Now, the following are things that you should do all 4 years, including during your freshman year. You want to get into the habit of reading quality nonfiction and be able to identify the main idea. That skill will serve you not only in school when you're taking courses, even like AP Lang in English, but it will definitely help you on AP exams such as AP US History, which I happen to teach, or any of the AP histories, and also your SAT or ACT, which I happen to tutor in, because both of those have extensive reading sections. And even the ACT, which has a science section, that is really a reading comprehension test, that section, with just scientific reasoning skills built into that. Okay. And if you need sort of little tips on what to read, if you go to my website, crimsoncoaching.com, which is down there in the footer, and you go to the resources page, way up at the top at test prep, I have little buttons for all 4 sections of the ACT, great kind of reading sections or suggestions of what you can read in order to get better at this skill. You also might want to think about keeping an extracurricular journal. When you get into 12th grade, you are going to need to tell the folks at commonapp.org what you did outside of school, how many hours a week you did it, and how many weeks a year you did it. And if you have to think back 3 years from 12th grade, it's going to be very challenging to do that. So I suggest really keeping an extracurricular journal now, maybe once a week. Jot down the things you did outside of school. It'll make your life a lot easier in 12th grade. Finally, get into the habit of meeting with your teachers regularly. If it's not for extra help, although I do recommend going to office hours to get extra help, because you can always learn something from another student. They might ask something that you never thought of, but that's a person who can really serve as a mentor and maybe write your college letter of recommendation in 3 years. Finally, this is something to not do. You really want to watch what you post on social media and communicate in your private texts, okay? Don't post anything that's racy or could be, very obviously racist, sexist, homophobic, those kinds of things, because even in what you think of as private text threads, there was a story of a young man who was accepted to Harvard about a decade ago, and somehow one of his texts got forwarded to the admissions office, and they rescinded or took away his offer of admissions for something that he said in what he thought was a private text. So your digital footprint is very long and will stay active, and the universities can and will absolutely check up on that. By 10th grade, you really want to start demonstrating your passion and challenging yourself. And let's talk about how you can do that. So, first of all, if your grades suffered during 9th grade, because the transition between 8th and 9th grade is very overwhelming for many students, and many students have sort of a rocky start to 9th grade, don't worry about that so much. But you do by 10th grade want to start bringing those scores up. And if you can't do that by the first quarter or third of 10th grade, this is the time when you really need to look into getting some sort of tutor to get that GPA up. Again, really cultivate relationships now with at least 2 academic teachers and your guidance counselor, who will also write a letter of recommendation for you. And again, if you've been doing well in school, think about adding 2 to 3 AP courses for 11th grade. Clearly, 11th grade is the last full year that colleges will have before they assess your academic record. And so you really want to make that grade shine, both in terms of the rigor of your coursework as well as your GPA. And finally, if you took at least integrated algebra 2 or algebra 2 or the equivalent in 10th grade, I would really recommend thinking about taking the ACT or the SAT either in 10th grade or in the summer between 10th and 11th grade. I happen to have an SAT prep course that is starting on February 6th for the May 7th and June 4th SATs. And if you're watching this after that, please contact me because I will most likely be having another course opening up soon. The reason I advocate this is you have all the math you need if you've taken Algebra 2, and it frees up your junior year to concentrate on that rigorous coursework. In terms of your extracurriculars for 9th and 10th grade, you can start exploring activities you've never done in 9th grade. I think that's a great idea. Think about what your current passions are. But by 10th grade, really think about starting to deepen your focus into perhaps 1 or 2 activities where you can really begin to focus some leadership activities. I would recommend, however, some activities like varsity sports and musicals and things like that sometimes require students to put in 20 or more hours a week. And if that level of commitment is causing your grades to drop, I would really assess whether that activity is right for you. Unless you're really performing at, say, a national level, that probably won't do that much to get you into college or even to get you a tremendous athletic scholarship. And you'd be more really, you'd be smarter to put more of your eggs in the academic basket if that is, if you're forced to choose. So summer, I absolutely recommend having fun over summer, but it's also a time when you could start pursuing your passions. Earning money is definitely okay. And if you can combine earning money with your passion, say you love kids and you really love taking care of them, great. So you love swimming and you want to be a lifeguard, awesome. But if you're able and you don't have to work, it's also a great idea to think about, taking a course at a local university so you can start to brand yourself, talk about what you might want, think about what you might want to do in college and start kind of developing that profile of that student right now. I'm sorry, this is an old date on here. I said, check out my impact projects talk on November 22nd. Sorry, that's already gone. And I don't unfortunately have, excuse me, any upcoming impact project talks, but I do plan on recording that and posting it to my YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com/c/Crimson Coaching, you will find my YouTube. I request, please, to help my channel grow by clicking subscribe. And there, hopefully by the time you are watching this talk, I will have the impact projects talk up there. And what an impact project is a long-term project where you are not just joining the club that school has started, you are starting your own project. And in this talk, you will find examples of impact projects that students of mine have done, that I've mentored, as well as that other students that I've tutored have done that have really helped them get accepted to some great colleges. And so, that is clearly, I mentored these students, so that's something else that Crimson Coaching offers. But whatever you do for summer, you want to think about really planning early. Now is the time you want to think about your summer. I know it's crazy, but really many of those applications for university programs are starting now. However, going to school during COVID is certainly an exhausting proposition. And if you feel burnt out in any way, shape, or form, then definitely take a summer off. It is not worth a mental health crisis to try to do all these things, the branding of yourself. It's your mental health is the most important thing of all. And so I definitely recommend taking a summer off if you need it. When you do feel well, though, the other part, remember we talked about college as a balancing act, getting the best application, making yourself the strongest applicant. That's what I just talked about. Now we're going to talk about the other part of that balancing scale, finding colleges that are right for you. So what I recommend that families who have 9th and 10th graders do is you don't have to spend a lot of time or money. We are very lucky in our neck of the woods here on Long Island, where we have a variety of colleges that are rural, suburban, urban, large and small, public and private, and all the permutations of that. So start visiting different types of colleges close by. You know, you could do one a weekend if you want, or one a month if that sounds too overwhelming. So that by the time your child is in 11th or 12th grade, and they do want to go far away to look at the actual colleges they want to apply to, you won't be visiting, say, small Chapman and large UCLA in the same trip, because you know that if your child wants to go to a big school, you only need to see UCLA. Okay. Some things you might want to ask yourself while you're on campus or even before. What might I like to major in? Oops, sorry about that. Where might I learn this in the right way for me? Do I like large classes or do I want small classes? Do I always need to be taught by a full professor, or I am usually at a large college, you might have to be taught by a graduate student? Is that okay for you? And also, if you're going to college primarily as a sort of career building move, are there research and internship opportunities available to undergraduates? And is the career services place a robust place? Speaking of careers, as you know, college can be an expensive proposition. So if the last slide was finding colleges right for you, this is funding colleges right for you. And here I'm going to borrow from Jeffrey Salingo, who has characterized colleges into two categories: buyers and sellers. Sellers are the rare colleges, the MITs, the Stanfords, the Princetons, the Yales. They do not have to give merit scholarships or tuition discounts to students because they have such a long line of students who are willing to pay full price. Most colleges, though, probably at least about 80% of colleges fall into the buyers category, where they are very willing to discount their tuition or give you merit scholarships if you are a very attractive student to them. And so Salingo has written, if your family can't easily write a $21,000 check for the average in-state public college or $49,000 for the average private school and do that for 4 years, be sure to have a few buyers on your list where your chances for merit aid are better. And if you're not sure about what types of colleges are buyers and sellers, take a look at Salingo's website. That's the link right there. And Dr. P's tip is look beyond the brand names that perhaps lots of other students in your school have applied to. So, for example, it's very common for good students in in our neck of the woods to go to a place like SUNY Binghamton. SUNY Binghamton's a great school, however, but when your counselor is recommending SUNY Binghamton to everybody in your class, you're then fighting against everybody else for a spot at SUNY Binghamton. And that competition gets even more fierce at the private schools. So look beyond where people have applied in the past and where your friends are applying, and you might be a little bit more likely to be able to get some merit aid from that school. Finally, I'll put myself over here now. Start start finalizing your first draft list, which I think you should do about 10 reach schools, 15 target schools, 10 safety schools by the start of 11th grade. And I'm not going to go into what you should do during 11th and 12th grade, because I have talk specifically about that, crafting a college list and applying to college one step at a time. I don't know if I'm giving those, I don't think, anytime this spring so far, but you should be able to find both of those on my YouTube channel. And as you are visiting colleges, really drill down on your safety and target colleges in person during 11th grade and whittle that list down by senior year to about 3 reach schools, 5 target schools, and 4 safety schools. And again, in these other talks, I go into much more detail about what is a target, what is a safety, and so forth. But these were some things that I just talked about that you could do to help you get in a good position so that you're ready by senior year with your college list, which you'd be surprised many students don't know that by the start of their senior year. So just some final thoughts. With planning, the journey to college can be exciting, fun, and filled with meaningful experiences during which you learn more about yourself and the kind of adult that you'd like to become. So I really believe that if you're starting this process as a 9th or 10th grader, it can be a really exciting time. And dedicating a little bit of time each week to it, you can really go somewhere great, and that's right for you when you get to be 18. So to learn more, feel free to email me at info@crimsoncoaching.com to receive my college planning tips for 9th and 10th graders. If I were doing this in person, I'd have a little handout for you like a teacher always does, but this is how we do things now online. If you like Crimson Coaching on Facebook, you'll also get news of all my upcoming talks about college planning and adolescent education. And probably a more efficient way is to subscribe to the newsletter at the very top of the homepage of my website, crimsoncoaching.com, because every month I send out just one little newsletter that talks about all of the talks I'll be giving that month. And finally, again, if you subscribe to my YouTube, you'll get notified also when I post recordings of talks like these. So usually this is the time I take questions, which is why this slide says questions. But for now, I want to invite you to email me with your questions, and I will certainly get back to you. But thank you so much for tuning in. And once again, thank you to Laura Panter for inviting me to give this talk, College Planning for 9th and 10th graders. And thank you to Sachem Library for hosting it. Once again, I'm Dr. P. Dominique Paterano, president and founder of Crimson Coaching, and I wish you all a very good evening.